Good afternoon, Wigan. We're going to chat today about who is the greatest of all time. Who is the GOAT? Alright, so I want a bit of debate going. And I've got two guys here in the realms of football, the football world. Anybody recognise that fella there? It's quite tricky to spot this guy because he's not wearing his usual colours. You reckon that is? Who's that? You're in the pink of Inter Miami. It is, of course...
Teddy Sheringham.
It's Lionel Messi, isn't it? So some people say Lionel Messi's the greatest of all time. What do you reckon? What do you reckon between him and Ronaldo, though? All right, Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah, I'm gonna listen to your cheers here. So if you think it's Messi, cheer now. One person. If you think it's Ronaldo, cheer now. Hey! All right, we've gone for Ronaldo there. His stats show up better. Ronaldo's got better stats than Messi, and he's done it at more clubs. But Messi's won probably more things. He's won the World Cup famously as well, hasn't he? So you reckon Messi, right? So we've got early now, then. Yeah, it's a bit early for that, isn't it? A bit early for early. Right, so that's it. So you've conclusively decided, I think, that Ronaldo's the best there, which is fair enough. What about these two guys, though? Let's see if you recognise these two fellas.
LeBron James.
LeBron James, yeah, well done, yeah. And who's the other guy? Who's the other fella? That guy there on the other side. The clue's in the...
Michael Jordan.
It is Michael Jordan. Well done. It's in the Earth film. That's all about him. Getting signed up with Nike, isn't it? I can't believe I said it right there. Brilliant. So anyway, they both were 23. But who's the greatest? Who would you say is the greatest? LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Look, I think it's LeBron James. Cheer now. I think it's Michael Jordan. Cheer now.
Wee.
Hey, we're going for Michael Jordan. I think we've got a Messi fan there. Is that Inter Miami there? Yeah, there we go. So I think Messi's making a comeback over there. So I think Jordan won it there, and rightly so, because you know this guy's even played baseball and done well at that. He won the NBA 3 years running. Then he went off and played baseball for a bit, and then he came back and he won it 3 more times. So the stats are in favour of Michael Jordan. LeBron James is doing it in a much more competitive environment, so that's where the debate is. But and he's still got time to go because he's still playing. So we'll see at the end of the career who's the greatest. But at the moment you think Michael Jordan. Right, what about these two fellas? Who's the greatest out of these two? We've got down here. Anybody recognise that fella? Anybody? They all shout at once. You recognise who it is, madam? Come on, we just know who this fella is. Driving for Mercedes, F1.
Lewis Hamilton.
Lewis Hamilton, yeah, 7 times world champion and British. People don't know who he is. And then we got this guy over here. He's been in the news a little bit more for certain reasons. He recognise him, driving F1 for Ferrari.
Michael Schumacher.
Michael Schumacher, that's right. All right, now they both won 7 world titles, so we've got a real intense debate here. So what do you reckon? British Lewis Hamilton, cheer now if you think it's Lewis. Hey! And cheer if you think it's Michael Schumacher.
Hey.
German. Oh dear me, right, we'll be having words for you later. So Max will come into it when he's won a few more world titles, I guess, but he's still quite young. So yeah, debate's out on that one, I think. What about these two fellas? Let's see if you recognise these two guys here. Who do you reckon that is? Who's that? Who's that, madam? Any ideas? Recognise him? No? What about the other fella? Recognise any of these guys? We've got here, Spaniard. He's won 22 Grand Slams. And here we've got a Serbian. He's won 23 Grand Slam world titles. But they're both still playing, so we can't decide exactly on that as to who's the greatest. But we've got, of course, Rafael Nadal, and we've got Novak Djokovic holding up the Wimbledon trophy there. So who do you think's the greatest out of those two guys? Any ideas? Hands up for Rafa Nadal. Anyone for Rafa Nadal? Nobody. He's always getting injured, isn't he? Hands up for Djokovic. Nobody. So the debate's out on them two as well. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's Jimmy Connors. I used to love Jimmy Connors. He was great. Anyway, so I'll tell you, it's not Ronaldo. It's not Michael Jordan. It's not Lewis Hamilton, Schumacher, Nadal or Djokovic. None of those guys are the greatest of all time. None of them. So I'll tell you who is the greatest of all time. This fella. Anybody know who that is? I'll give you a big clue. He's walking on water. And no, it's not the fact that he could walk on water that none of these guys can do as to why he's the greatest of all time. You know who it is? It's the Lord Jesus. Now, why is the Lord Jesus Christ the greatest of all time? What makes him the GOAT? What makes him the greatest? Well, I've got a few thoughts here from just one little bit of the Bible. This is just one bit. I mean, if you take the whole of the Bible, it all points to him, it all glorifies him. But one little chapter of the Bible, Colossians chapter 1, we can get 5 things here as to why Jesus is the greatest of all time. He's a man like you and me. He walked this earth 2,000 years ago. So what makes Jesus the GOAT? What makes him the greatest of all time? What makes him better than all these other guys here? Let me tell you first of all, it says this, that the Son is the image of the invisible God. So Jesus, if you've seen Jesus, which the disciples did, you've seen Jesus, you've seen God. He famously said, he that has seen me has seen the Father. Jesus is God. So if you've seen him, you've seen God. He's the image of the invisible God. Jesus is God. Alright? And not a lot of religions say that. They say, some of them say he's the Son of God. Not many claim that he's God. Just Christianity says he is God. That's one reason why he's the greatest of all time. What about this? Next one. In him, all things were created. So Jesus created everything. Alright, now we think of him as just existing from Bethlehem a few years ago, 2,000 years ago. But no, he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. So he's before all things. He's before the beginning. He exists outside of time. And that's why, when people come to me and say, oh, who made God? We made God. Guys, God exists outside of time, space, and matter. Alright, so it's a daft question to say who made God. Because he's not matter. He's not in a fixed place in time, or although he can be. And he's outside of time. So, God, this is how great Jesus is. He's before all things. And that other bit, in him, all things hold together. Now, scientists have got this, scratching their heads, and they've built this big Hadron Collider, haven't they, in Geneva, going miles underground, trying to find out how atoms can just not be flying off into space. What holds all atoms together? There's something cohesive that's holding all things together. And do you know what it is? It's the Lord Jesus. In him, all things hold together. He's that force that binds everything in the whole universe. What about this one? He's the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, that in all things he might have the preeminence, or the supremacy, the first place. So he's the first one to rise from the dead into a glorified body, which is amazing, isn't it? But he's the beginning. He's the beginning before all time. And then my favourite one, the last one, and this is the one that really, really does make Jesus the greatest of all time, and it's this: that God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things in heaven or things on earth, whether thrones, powers, rulers or authorities. All things were brought to him, and he made peace by his blood shed on the cross. So that means that me and you can be friends with Jesus. We can be reconciled with Jesus. Now, when you fall out with somebody because you've done something wrong, you've got to say sorry to them, don't you? Yeah? And just sometimes saying sorry isn't good enough. But we can be friends with God. Us who were enemies of God, because he first loved us and sent his son to die for us, we can be friends with God. And all it takes is just coming to him and saying a simple prayer, really heartfelt prayer, that's really meant, just saying, Jesus, will you forgive me for the things that I've done wrong? Thank you for dying for me on the cross. Help me to follow you. And through Jesus' blood shed on the cross, you can be forgiven. And that is amazing. He died on the cross for you. You might say, well, why did that have to happen? Did it have to happen? Some religions say it didn't have to happen. You just be good and it'll be good enough. But it's not. Listen, if there was any other way, and all these other religions say, oh, you can do this, you can do that, you can do the other. No, if there was any other way to be saved, then Jesus wouldn't have God wouldn't have sent his son, Jesus, to die that agonizing, cruel death on the cross. He wouldn't have done it. So the reason Jesus had to do that is because it was the only way. And even Jesus himself asked, didn't he? He was in the garden, he said, Father, if there be any other way, let it be so. Nevertheless, your will be done. So even Jesus asked, is there any other way? And the Father said, no, this is the only way. This is the only way to get to heaven, friends. It's through the blood of the Lord Jesus. He shed his blood that we can be reconciled to him. We can be friends with him. And I'll tell you this, my friends have been talking about how your life can be turned around right now. You can have life before death, real life, abundant life before death. Never mind just life after death. And you can have the greatest friend you will ever encounter. Someone who will never ever let you down. Someone who is there at all times. Someone who doesn't count a record of right or wrongs. They'll be thrown into the bottom of the sea. It's a beautiful thing. And you can have that friendship with Jesus today. He's just one prayer away. Thank you for listening. If you want to take any leaflets or even a portion of the Bible off us, then please come and get a bit of John's Gospel off us, and we'll chat some more about these things. Thank you for listening.